All right, so I am the discussion facilitator for discussion number 2, which was about Jeannie. And basically it wants to talk about the case of children raised without human interaction suggested that human interaction is essential for language to develop. And our first question is, what do you guys think that means?
I was going to say, like, a lot of language is, like, especially in our field, is modeling language and, like, appropriate language use and things like that. And I feel like a lot of the things that you learn to say, you learn from other people saying them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I do think it takes exposure in order to be able to get any sort of language.
No, I definitely agree. I have, like, all of my kids, the ones that are capable of verbal, like, I'm always having to model exactly what I want them to say or any kind of approximations, especially like, hey, you can say thank you or say hi, like anything like that. And they're instead of just waving and not saying anything at all, I'm like, you can say hi. And so
Right.
I have to model that for them almost every day. Or if I want them to say a complete sentence instead of just saying goldfish, I have to say, you can say, I want goldfish.
Right.
I think about, I have a 4-year-old, so I think about, when he was born up until now, most of his language has, been from us modeling, or us talking, or him being around others. Even like the bad things he picks up, he picks them up in the context that's appropriate, just being around that or seeing it. And, I do think it's important that they're socialized and they're exposed to that so they can learn. And I think those are important years, the first, 3-4 years.
Right.
It is important that they're exposed to that early on so they can start building that language development.
Right.
I have students right now that are ages 3 to 5 with multiple disabilities, and we see that all the time in the room. Like, we have to model everything. Pretty much just like, do this, do that. We try to work on that gross motor imitation or vocal imitation. And now we even see it with the assistive technology, where if we're starting a child out on a device, you have to do the modeling and say, oh, you could say my turn, and you can say this, or, thank you, I want this. But it just goes over across the board.
Yeah. I was actually relating to Stephanie. I don't have kids, but I have a niece and my nephew. And my nephew, I was there, he's 8 now, but when I was there for the first 4 years of his life, he picked up on everything. Like my brother and I were saying, my parents, like it was literally everything. And I was like, wow, this is like truly incredible. Like this is exactly how he just picked up on everything I shouldn't have just said, and he knows it now.
Yeah.
Like, and it's one of those things where it's like, okay, wow, like that's truly how it goes. And now my niece, like, I don't even see her, but I'll talk to her on the phone and she won't shut up. And she's 3. And I'm just like, okay, like what the heck? And then I'll say something and she'll say it back to me, and then she'll be like, well, what does that mean? And I'll tell her. 5 minutes later, she knows exactly what that is.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of the stuff that you learn is by, like, asking questions. Like, I know when I was younger, like, my parents said they had to, like, take turns answering my questions. Like, kids ask questions all the time, and that's how you, like, explore your environment.
Yeah. Why is always the big one.
And they're not even doing it to be annoying. Like, they genuinely want to know. Like, that's how they explore the environment and things like that. So I think that's 100% true that they have to be exposed to language.
And I almost feel bad, like, when you say that, like, my niece will say why, and I'm like, I'll answer it, and then she'll ask why, and like I try to go in depth as possible, like just for her to understand at 3 years old. But then it gets to a point where she's gonna ask why like 6 times, and I'm like, I said so. That's how it is, and she doesn't get it, and I'm just like, I got nothing else. Like I can't even express that anymore to you for you to be able to understand.
Yeah.
So it's really, really comical, and I know for like Trish said, like, for my kids, like modeling that kind of stuff is like really hard sometimes, just because the way we do things is like for kids on the devices, we can't exactly model it for them, but I can go and model it with my hand and be like, this is what you're going to say. Or I can physically prompt them, and that's more of anything. Like that's going to teach them more than anything, because I'm just physically prompting them and giving them that exposure for them doing it with their finger instead of watching me do it.
Right.
So
I had a training not too long ago, and I have a lot of kids that have hard of hearing and are blind, and they say the prompting that to try to do it hand under hand instead of hand over hand.
Oh.
Because they get too prompt dependent on like hand over hand. And we've really tried it in the classroom, and it's been like amazing.
Oh, that's cool.
Don't continue with you. You just continue to do it and follow through to show them what you were going to do.
That's cool. I've never heard of that. That's awesome though.
The one thing I thought was interesting from the video is when they kind of had the debate about, is there a deadline
Yeah.
applying the language? And I used to work with adults with disability, and I had a woman in her 50s, and she was kind of not this severe, but she was pretty much neglected, and she was nonverbal. And they said when she finally got into care, you know, with someone who worked with her, she did start to make progress, and she always remained nonverbal, but she was starting to use signs for, you know, different items. So it was just interesting to me to kind of just see and wonder myself, is there a deadline for, is there a cutoff for this language development?
Yeah, it's kind of like that age-old question, like nature versus nurture. Like, it really makes you wonder.
Yeah,
You know?
that's true. That's definitely true. So our next question is, do you think Ginny was possibly born with an intellectual disability? And actually, I think it's really comical because the way like they describe her in this video is like she can't do anything. Like when she like first comes out of like isolation, I feel like she just like over time. And I genuinely don't think that, I'm not saying she did have an intellectual disability. She might have had something, but I think she was just exposed to oh, what's the word I'm looking for? Like solidarity. Like, is that the word I'm looking for? Maybe.
Yeah.
Isolation.
Like for so long. And she just, at that time, like there was, what else did she know? She knew to be quiet, and that's it. Like, and I know a kid that he was able to talk, and then he always kept getting like shut down and like told to like be quiet or do this or do that. And he eventually became nonverbal. Like, we have no idea where his language went. And like, I mean, I'm not a psychologist, like I'm not like a scientist or anything, so I'm not like the one studying it all the time, but like he used to talk and now he doesn't. And it's kind of sad, but like at the same time, like that's probably exactly what happened to her. Like she was exposed to nothing and nobody for so long. Like it's just one of those things for her.
I mean, she was probably malnourished. I mean, everything that goes along with it. Your brain can't develop properly. I mean, I'm sure she was born with a healthy brain and all, but, you know, how could you? She might have been like a little bit more developed, like a little bit slower developing or something like that, and they thought maybe she was delayed and that's why they started neglecting her. But I don't think she was born anywhere near how she was when they found her.
Well, they said that she was making like a year's worth of progress each year when they started working with her, so that made some believe that, you know, maybe she wasn't.
Right.
So, I don't know.
No, I definitely agree. And then like the part where like she hit a certain point and then she like wasn't making progress anymore. Like, and I honestly just think it's because, you know, for us, like when we're growing up, like Stephanie said, like you learn those first 3 to 4 years, like you're learning so much. Like your brain is still trying to learn and comprehend everything. And when you're learning at that age, it's very crucial to learn. But then as you get older, you get into school, you're learning more academic stuff, but you're also learning a lot of like real world stuff, like hang out with your peers and like social interactions. And for her, when she got put into the state after leaving her mom, like it's one of those things where she probably had no idea like what to do with peers, and that's just how she was, and so she shut down again. Like that was just a natural reaction for her.
Right.
After she started throwing up, she got punished, so then she just stopped talking again.
Yeah.
Opening up her mouth.
Yeah.
Horrible.
And then our last question, or last topic, is discuss the ethical issues related to Jeannie.
I mean, there's so many ethical issues. It's like unreal. If she means like
unreal.
The ethical issue of what they were talking about, whether they did too much experimenting and testing and all that, I think there's a fine line because nobody really did it for a selfish reason.
Yeah.
I think they got so involved because this study could really help people in the future, and I think that's why they did it, and they cared about her and they wanted to help her. I don't think they were doing it to be malicious or nasty or anything of the sort. It's hard to come by something that you could study like that. You know what I mean? Like you can't, like somebody said in the video, you can't just purposely malnourish somebody and put them in isolation for 7 years just to study them. I mean, so, but it definitely could go either way.
That's
they put
fine.
so much into her and like all this work in her because they saw so much progress and so much like
Exactly.
that she's capable of.
Right.
When students, you get so excited when they show progress and like
Yeah.
you just want to keep going and you want to like keep seeing how much further you can take them.
Right.
Honestly, just like the unethical part that I like, it probably breaks my heart more than anything, like how dad just did that to his child. Honestly, like,
Yeah.
that's unethical on so many levels. But I mean, back in the 70s, like at the same time, like there's not ethical codes like there are now. But at the same time, like going from like where I work at, like as an ABA therapist, and like the ethics that I know that I have to follow, like it just blows my mind that like back then that like that just happened, like that just happened. So
I just think it was a fine line, and everyone, like everyone else said, it was just everyone. It was such a groundbreaking case, and everyone was so intrigued by her.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm sure ethical lines were crossed, but they were really trying to figure out, you know, the science behind it as well.
Right. Right.
yeah, that's true. Well, actually, that's our time. Perfect timing, actually. So I'm going to stop this.